G'day and welcome back for more Survival Impossible. I'm here with my second drop pod, and now I need to think about how I'm going to get these to my grinder pit relatively quickly. I'd like it to be fairly straightforward. I had a bunch of suggestions from you guys, and a few of them I really wanted to pursue as my solution, but have had to wind back my temptation of subgrids a little bit to pick a more a quicker solution, as in a quicker to grab, pick up, move solution. One of the options that I did consider that I thought was actually quite cool, but definitely does not work, is the idea of putting wheels on the pod itself and just hopping in and driving it back to have it ground down. The reason that doesn't work is that the pod would be too wide if I were to put wheels anywhere along these cargo containers. It would be too wide. It'd be too wide for the welder array that's up at the launch air base. And that means I would only be able to put wheels at this end and all the way down at this end. And 4 wheels? Yeah, definitely not going to be strong enough to move something this heavy in this high gravity. So I need something that has a lot more wheels than that. I think, honestly, to be able to move this over any of even the slightest slopes around here, I'm going to need 8 wheels. So 4 pairs down the vehicle, and probably 5x5s to keep enough ground clearance for something this long as well. I could maybe use 3x3s and get even more wheels on, and therefore more torque, but I think we'll go with 5x5s, as I think that's going to look best at that scale. One of the really cool suggestions that I kind of wanted to do, and I did do some mucking around in a creative world to try and see if I could figure out a quick solution to this, was a type of truck called a hook lift. These are used for picking up like rubbish skip bins or dumpsters, where it's kind of dragged up and onto the back of the truck. But to do this in SE starts getting a little bit complex because they have basically hinge mounted pistons doing most of the actuation. And as we saw with my crane that's piston actuated, something with this gravity is not playing nicely. I got the system to work, but it didn't feel like I was actually using a hook lift truck. What it felt like I was doing was basically just using the hinges to lift the whole thing up like a crane. And so I kind of went, as tempting as this is, I think what I'm going to do instead is something that's going to make the process much quicker when I do it. So what I'm going to go for is a truck that hugs the drop pod. So when I say it hugs the drop pod, what I mean is it's going to be a U-shaped truck that is longer than the pod and can drive up to it, reverse into it, grab the connector on the pod, pick it up, and then drive off to the grinder pit and drop it in. Now the grinder pit is not big enough for that right now. So I need to make the grinder pit bigger first, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to make the grinder pit bigger, and then I'm going to build the truck that can drop this off. Because I'm that confident, this could go so badly wrong. I'm that confident that the truck will work. One of the things I'm going to need for making sure the truck can work long term so that I don't have to manually do stuff is also to put an action relay on the blueprint for the drop pod. Because what I want to be able to do with the truck is make that connector turn on. Also, I'm going to need a new parking spot for Manny if I'm going to be modifying this to use a new truck, because the new truck should probably sit in here rather than Manny, which is really quite sad because I love Manny's little drop thing. So I'm going to get rid of this. Oh. Whoops. Did not think that that was attached there. Forgot that it wasn't. Didn't have another attachment point. Dang it. Alright, so... Oh, whoops. I'm grinding the grinder. Wasn't paying attention to what I was actually doing there. Ah, nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind out this bit of floor and the conveyor beneath and put in another row of grinders, because at 3x4, this will be comfortably big enough for the pod to be reversed in here and be ground down lengthways. In fact, I may even be able to get rid of these grinders on the side. They may not need to remain. But I'll probably leave them just because, you know, it looks nicer having it cover the whole floor. And who knows, I might eventually start grinding down some assert stuff in here too. Actually, if I'm grinding down assert stuff, then Manny still has a function. Yes! Manny is saved! Manny is not a relic. Oh, that makes me happy. So Manny is another one of my builds that I really like in this series. The rock lobster, Manny, there are a few, and now the pufferfish and the remora. All of those builds got, to my mind, oh, and the absconder. All of those builds got finished. They were complete builds. And I've been guilty a lot of times over the years of not quite completing builds. So not getting them to the stage where there's really nothing else I need to do. So one of the things I realized when I started thinking about a U-shaped vehicle is that 4 blocks wide is actually quite narrow when you look at 5x5 wheels. I don't have a lot of extra room. The drop pods are 5 blocks wide, which means the U-shaped thing for my vehicle needs to be 7 blocks wide. And if we look at Manny is, what, 3 blocks between the regular suspensions? Actually, it's just 1 block between the regular suspensions. With shorts, I think short suspensions would make it 3 blocks. So we're adding an extra 4 blocks. And we are pretty much then at the edge. The truck will just barely fit in here. Which is okay, as long as it does fit. But that means that the button that I used to have sitting here can't sit there. So what I've either got to do is get rid of this block, which I can't do because it's actually a 2x1 slope. I can't put a button where the half slab would end up being in replacing this, which sucks. Or try and put, no, the door's occupying this spot. Yeah, there is nowhere in here to put a button. Which means I need to put the button in here. And to put the button in here and have a place to recharge, because I keep running into that problem, I'd need to move the door out onto here. Oh man, this is tricky. Can I extend this further to try and make all this work? I think it'd be kind of cool to have the control room have a window. But that's where the conveyor goes. So I need to move the conveyor. Oh boy. I do think having this room continue further along would be nice. And then I can have a window through and put a button panel to look at the grinder pit. Even though I'll probably control the grinder pit entirely from within this new vehicle. Like I am controlling it from Manny. Wow, that unknown signal's close. Actually, that is close enough. I'm going to check it out. Especially with these new unknown signals having more stuff in them. I mean, 900 meters is a bit far to go on foot. I need a vehicle. Where's the absconder? Okay, that's quite large. And what have you got in the cargo? The reason I wanted to look at this is that occasionally... Ooh, dirt. Take that. Occasionally, these will have tools in them that have silver. So I was like, oh, maybe I should see if this is one of the ones and I get lucky and there's actually silver in it. There isn't. So, I'll not worry about that. Yeah, if I can get an upgraded tier tool, that can actually be quite lucrative for me. Whatever. I don't need to collect the remainder of that. Much better off working on collecting my pods. Oh, tree! Do like driving this thing. It's so much fun. It's such a silly vehicle too. Doesn't even try to balance really. It just skates along on those side wheels. Oh, turn it off to save power. Grinder pit upgrade complete. This should now be long enough for the pods. I've got 3 welders welding the thing up, so I should be able to grind it down with the same 3 grinders. So size-wise, this should be adequate to grind down everything, especially as I've got tool shake-off, so things aren't going to get flung around. Then, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with Manny in terms of parking, but we'll sort that out on another stage. I'm going to leave the collectors in the floor because they're a nice memory that they're there. And now, let's get building this carrier vehicle. I'll sort out the viewing room and buttons and things later. I've added the grinders to the group so that this should all just work by the same controlling setup that I had. Make sure I've got action relays so that I can control it from the truck, so like I can drive in here, drop it, drive forward, get myself clear, and then turn it on and make sure that it's all ground down while I go collect another pod. But that should all be fine. Let's go and build this vehicle so I can start getting some of these pods and getting some iron so that I can start making the rail. The train. The vehicle idea I have in mind is relatively straightforward, just a single piston to pick these things up and down, and drop them down. But I'm hoping to use a couple of things on it to make it a little bit easier to drive and control than it might otherwise be. One of the problems with picking something up, like the drop pods, is that they are a subgrid. They're going to get in the way of the camera when I'm trying to control it from third person. So I'm going to lift the cockpit up to give myself a better third person control even when I've got one of the cargo pods on me. Another alternative in that situation to give myself a clear view would be to put the control seat at the rear and drive this thing up to the pod, lift it up, and then drive with the pod at the front. Which I kind of like, but I also think we'll end up making the vehicle much larger, because then I would need to have the cockpit kind of off to the side, and I worry that I'll end up having... I worry that I'll struggle to make it the shape that I envisage if I do it that way. So I'm going to go with having the cockpit, having to reverse up to the pod and reverse into the parking spot, which actually with a vehicle this wide and long, reversing in might actually be easier into a tight spot. So 7 blocks wide. And then we need to use short 5x5 suspensions, and hopefully that will be narrow enough for this to work. So 7 blocks between the 5x5 suspensions. So let's get the suspensions I want to use on my hotbar. Let's start by laying a couple of these out. So we've got off-road short 5x5 left. That's my... Let's put left over this side. Now I have an idea that I think is going to look interesting, and will hopefully get me to pretty much the correct length of vehicle. If I use these as the joining bits between the vehicle, between the wheels. So we go truss pillar up and down, placing these actually on the suspension block, so that, again, the vehicle is as narrow as it possibly can be while still using the 5x5 wheels. So I'm going to use those to keep 5 blocks between each set of wheels. With 5x5s in single player, you can go closer than this. So we could bring them, I think you can mostly, if you have very minimal or no steering, get away with 3 blocks apart with 5x5s. You can definitely get away with 4. But if you're on a server or anything where there's a bit of latency, you cannot get away with that. You need to have more space between the wheels. Or it does not work. The pods I know are slightly longer than 15 blocks long. So if I go with the 5x5 wheels, so if I use these as spaces, these truss pillars, then I should end up with 15 blocks for the truss pillars, plus 6 blocks for the wheel set, and that's going to make this plenty long enough. Hopefully not too long. That's a little bit of a worry. I'm not sure how to make it less long if I want to use the truss pillars. I think I'll just accept it and hope for the best. Hope that this can still drop the pods into the grinder pit without them being so far out that they can't be ground down. Now let's join this up in another way to the pillar so that I can get rid of that initial frame. I just thought using these would be nice. I don't use them that often. Oh, nuts. Oh, nuts. Why? Why did I not look? I thought I had this connected at the other end, and I clearly didn't. Now, I didn't calculate at all that I needed 4. I just figure these pods are really heavy. I need more than I usually go for, so 4 sets of wheels seems to be a decent approach. And plus, as soon as I thought about using these truss pillars as spaces, I was like, yeah, 4 will look cool. It's weird building something like this where I actually think I might be building the mechanically best solution that I have. Like an ideal solution would probably be something along the lines of being able to drive the thing home itself. But I think this one's the mechanically best solution I've got because I can't use wheels like that, because they'll be too... the pod will be too heavy to fit enough wheels on. But I think this is the mechanically best option. It's going to be super quick. to drive up to them, reverse around them, grab it, lift it. It's going to give a really low center of mass because I don't have to lift the pod any higher than is needed for the ground clearance. So the heaviest thing is really close to the ground. It's a really simple mechanism using just a single piston to lift it up and down. It's got all of the hallmarks of an engineering solution, but I think I can still make it look cool. It's not like my shuttle where if I really wanted to optimize that thing, I would probably make it as a cargo shuttle, fly up to the base, load up with iron, come back. That'd be boring. This is actually a weird solution for me because I feel like this is not necessarily the boring solution, and it's the best one. Link this up here so I know I can't separate it again. I'm going to use some plate under here, even though I'm never going to see it. I'm going to use, well, never say never. I hope I never see under here, because if I see under here, something has gone very wrong. I'm just going to join these together with something a bit more robust looking. Just because I feel like when I've just got plate here, I don't know, when I've just got the steel blocks between them, the batteries don't actually look that well adhered to that surface. Make a bit of a bumper across the front here. And again, continuing the truss pillars. Though, I think for this, I might just put the one, because having two of them on the front I think will look a bit weird. Instead, what I'm going to do, let's bring armor to there, then we'll use this. It'll give it kind of the almost modern vehicle mouth look across here for the front grille. There we go. Oh no, that's the... I don't think that looks right. I think what we need is actually a different block type here. Because seeing the battery bits, I think looks a bit strange. Let's go with something that'll give us same feel, but hide that. So we're gonna get this block. Do that there. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, much happier with that. Since I always forget them, let's put some spotlights on now. 1, 2, and we'll put some area lights on. And while I'm thinking lights, let's put some at the back. I'm going to make a little frame to support the piston on, and I can probably push this into this space here, because what have I got? 15, oh wait, 14 plus 6. So I got 20 blocks before the back of the truck, which is plenty for this thing, so we can definitely push it into the space. I want to kind of continue using oh man, why do I keep forgetting the name of this block? The truss pillar, as much as I can through this, because I kind of like that it's the ongoing, the motif of the build. So if I build those on there, then I can probably build a piston that's pointing downward, because I would prefer the piston point downward, grab the thing and pull up, then have to lower itself down and grab on. The reason for that is that I think the connector for the pods is going to be close enough to the ground that having the piston at its minimum extension grabbing onto it is going to be so low that the piston itself is going to be at risk of hitting the ground when I'm driving. I mean, it's going to be at risk given the way I drive, but that's beside the point. The cockpit needs to be high, so I want to at least lift it up one more block. Hopefully one block will be enough. And I can break this surface up. Like, I'm building something that's very flat right now, but I can break it up quite easily with a number of the blocks that we need, like the action relays and just some extra decorative pieces. Because I'm very much enjoying those after building the pufferfish. Like the little control panels and stuff. I'm going to be using those a lot more. I'm annoyed with myself for not using them more up to this point. Because we've had them for ages and they've not worked their way into my build repertoire as quickly as I kind of wish they would have. It's funny how some blocks like that just seem to take a while before I start to use them as much as I can. While other blocks that we've had, such as panels, started using them immediately. They filled a need that I had straight out of the gate. I'm gonna have the piston hanging in the middle. What if I use scaffold? Yeah, let's use scaffold. That kind of looks a little bit like the things. And then the middle can be be a full block because I think it'll look strange to have piston hanging off that. Then drop our piston down. On the bottom of the piston, doesn't need much, just needs to have one of these and a connector. I'm not going to bother piping to this connector. I don't think there's any particular benefit to me in doing so in this particular instance. If I were more worried about the center of mass here, then absolutely I would try and pipe up this connector, because then I could offload the iron into this thing to lower its center of mass. But I'm not putting any cargo on this vehicle. It's not going to be operating far from home, I hope. So it doesn't need to have any backup things like food, because I don't need to worry about oxygen because I'm going to put a vent on it. There we go. So there's our connection system. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I like it. And then we're going to go with industrial cockpit, because that's what I prefer for these sorts of vehicles. Now, to continue my theme of doing things in ways that are unusual for me, I'm going to add yet another light. I'm going to add a floodlight. Because you're reversing up to a pod late at night, you want to be able to see it, right? Well, let's put an angled floodlight here. Because that's going to highlight the pod. You know, it's sensible, right? I think it'll look nice having that too. Now let's get rid of that and change it out for one of these guys. Gonna need to add some color to this before I'm finished, but we're getting pretty close. Just got to add the remaining functional parts. So we need an antenna. We need an action relay. Do I need anything else? I don't think I do. I think I just need the antenna and action relay. They're the only functional parts. Oh, and the vent. I need a vent. A pair of slopes there and a pair of slopes there, just to make that shape look a little less blocky. That'll help me figure out where I want to put the other bits and pieces. I think I want the antenna to be slightly inset into this surface. So what I'll do is maybe chop out that, pop the antenna in there. It's breaking up this surface nicely. Then action relay. Do I want it on this side? Yeah, maybe. It's going to put this access panel here in between them. So I think that'll give a nice bit of extra detail on there. Then I can go around to the other side and just put access panels on there to break that other side up. Then we've got a little bit of subtle asymmetry here. Piston should be easily controllable via basic piston controls. I don't need anything fancy there. Action relay will control the pod and tell it to turn the connector on. That's really all the action relay's for. I can tell the pod to turn its connector on so that I can hook up to it, because the pod turns it off for launch. I could have the pod automatically turn it back on critical as it's dropping down, but I think I'm probably better off not doing that. Oh, I'll need an event controller for docking this thing, because eventually I'll need to have a dock where this is how it connects to the dock. So it's going to have to be a very unusual dock for this thing. Oh, yeah, it's going to have to be a really unusual dock for this thing. With those in, I just need to link up the back of the cockpit here, which I think... I think I'm just going to use regular armor blocks for. So I kind of want to cover up those conveyor ports are there. Vent on depressurize. We've got our light. I've got my truck. Only thing I need really for this now is a parking spot and a paint job. Sweet. Now what to do for a paint job for it? Yeah. Let's grab red. And I think I'll leave it as battered. We're going to go cockpit red. I got it slightly more saturation. Slightly less vibrance. Let's try that. Or value. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the white wheels onto the red struts. The other thing I'm going to change is probably making all these bits that stick out of that surface red. All the details. And then also... Oh, did I do the top or the bottom when I was doing the front? The top. Oh, that's the other thing I need. Grey. Change these grates. In fact, I might change this whole bit. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I'll do the same around this side. And then I'm going to add some little bits of yellow hazard around here. So I think I need a few bits of yellow hazard to really make this pop. Yeah, I think that's enough. It's easy for me to get carried away with these things, but I think that adds a little bit of extra detail and means that the connector isn't the only thing showing up yellow, even though there's a little bit of yellow on the suspensions, but I think that kind of works. And unlike the train constructor, I don't think I'm quite getting the McDonald's vibes here. I still need to rename that train to Big Mac. Cool. Vehicle complete. Let's go test it on the pod. Hopefully it works. And this one, I do not have an idea of what to name it. I am going to need your help with that. I genuinely have no idea. One thing I do need to do, though, is fix up the steering. Steering's going to be really annoying on this. So I think it's going to switch when I connect to the thing. So I was going to make it have all wheel sets steer, but if I do that, I think it's going to mess me around. So what I'll do is I'll just make the front four have steering, but I'll make these ones a bit reduced and hope that the center of mass doesn't change enough that this set inverts itself every time I connect to a load. So let's get all these strength up because they're going to be carrying a very heavy load. The rear-facing floodlight does not need to go very far, but the front-facing spotlights do. That should be all the controls I need for the moment because I don't have any frequency for the action relay yet, so I'll set that up later, but... Oh, actually, it shouldn't be a problem. I was about to say it could be a problem having the action relay turn on all of the connectors from all the pods nearby, but that's really not an issue. Oh, wait, no, because it'll turn on the one that's up at the base. If I've just welded one, it's going to turn on the connector up there. That is a problem. Because my antenna will relay all that distance. Maybe I need this to be manual. That's a bit annoying. Oh, well. It's not the biggest deal having to do that. Like, it's not that hard to pop out, turn it on, pop back in. Oh. My wheels are inverted. Which wheels are they? That one, and nope. Invert steering. Now the steering makes sense. Alright, let's go get that drop pod. See how well this vehicle works. It is a very unusual vehicle. It is designed for a very specific purpose, but man, if this thing works, I'm going to be very happy. Where is the drop? Oh. Oh dear. Huh. Because I've got the drop pod broadcasting so far, I think it's already chewed through all of its battery. It has, it's off. Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna have to make sure I collect these fairly quickly to prevent that being a problem. Have I got the scale right? I was working from memories of sizes, so it's possible I got it wrong, but I'm pretty confident. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is make sure I've got the piston extending to the correct distance and set that as its max. I'll get it down to pod level, although the pod is now jiggling its way down the hill because I'm close. About the right height, a little bit further. What's our distance at? Let's make the maximum distance 1.4. We'll need shared inertia tensor on that. And we need to turn this on. There we go. Connect. And then retract. Feel those wheels. Uh-oh. Why am I not able to stop? Oh boy. Well, my wheels didn't invert themselves, so that's nice. Oh man. Okay, I'm glad I didn't just put wheels on the pod. I am barely able to move this with the 5x5s. Let's see if I can increase my power a bit. See if we can get up that hill. Now this is where the third-person camera thing would have been annoying if I'd loaded the drop pod higher up, which the hook lift would have done. So I would have had to put my control seat in a different spot for this. Come on. Get up the hill. Get up the hill. What I'm going to try and do is fix a bit where the drop pods are landing. In an ideal world, I would love to have them land at the top of this hill, somewhere around here, so I really don't have to drive them very far. I don't think the drop pods are accurate enough, but that's going to be the next thing to test, because I need to launch another one today, don't I? If I can grind this one down, I need to launch another one. I also need to get Manny out of the way so I can drop this thing off and grind it down. So let's undock, off recharge, move forwards, put away the connector, and open the doors. And here it goes. Is this gonna work? Wouldn't mind having a bit more steering. This thing is... this thing has a terrible turning circle. Alright, reversing in. Have I misjudged the width? Oh, that is a tight fit. That is a very tight fit. Okay, let's go all the way to the back. Lock down. Then we extend the piston. And we unlock. I can drive forward. Then I can try and find out whether I did set up an action relay for the grinder pit. I don't remember whether I did. Probably not, since there's not one on the base. Let's fix that somehow. Where should I put the action relay? Somewhere underneath, I guess. Maybe on the roof. Set up actions, groups, grinder, toggle block on off, accept signal from faction. Now, I think if I set the channel here, let's pick something. Let's start from channel 10 for stuff, just in case there's something that I eventually decide later is a more important thing for channel 1. So we'll start with channel 10. Now, if I hop back in the front of the U-shaped truck... Oh dear. Is this thing going to be called the U-Haul? Or some kind of vaguely Space Engineers take on that? Does that kind of work? Maybe. Alright, so, action relay. Set channel and send signal. Set channel to 10. Send to 10. Let's see if this works. Blam. Oh yeah. Down it goes. And off pops the bit with the connector to never be ground down. Dang it! That's a bit annoying. I don't know how to fix that either. I kind of need to be able to drop this further in so that those bits aren't sticking out there like that. Because it's also not grinding down. Well, that's not worked out as well as I'd hoped. This is a lot more manual for getting rid of these last bits. I mean, the iron's in. Let's have a look how much iron I've got. Iron. We have 146,000 already. Steel plate. How many do I have? The train is nearly full. It's nearly got its 20,000 steel plate on it. And I've got 4,000 still made. Yeah! It's the whole reason we were doing this, so that's a positive. Not sure what to do about the grinder pit. Maybe it's the radius of the grinders needs to be improved because they're leaving gaps, and I didn't want that. Basically, one of the reasons I modified the welders and grinders was that I just found that their distances, leaving those gaps for things, was just really annoying. It meant that you couldn't use them like it seemed like it would be sensible for them. Wait, did I even change the grinders? Maybe I only changed the welders. Maybe I need to do it to the grinders too. But, there we go. One pod down. Yeah. How I make a connection for this thing, I'm uncertain. But that is probably my next problem to face. As while it says it has 11 hours of power, it is going to run out. And it will run out at an inconvenient time, so I should deal with this issue now. Oh, you know what? I kind of want to leave Manny's parking spot there, but now I want to make a new one. Oh, let's turn off the grinder pit. I want to make a new one that drops down from the ceiling that sits in the right spot that I send with the action relay to drop it down. So we've got the old school one that uses the programmable blocks, and the new school one that uses the action relay. So I pop that out there, and then we put the rotor in here. Now we need to make sure the rest of the roof comes up in such a way that this is airtight. So if I do that and then place a full plate on there, that should be airtight, I think. Speaking of airtight, I am getting a bit low on the old O2. Now let's test the airtightness. I need to find out what timer block it is that triggers these doors. Oh yep, that triggers them all. So we need another action relay. But I wanted to test if this is airtight first. Yay, it is. Good. Good. Yes, need another action relay for the doors. Okay, so this should be fairly straightforward to make something that works. The main challenge here is making something that works, but looks tidy. It'll just be the simple case of a hinge like this, some blocks, and a connector. I'm hoping that's close enough to the middle that it'll still be able to align. Oh, in fact, it might end up being 2 hinges.
No energy.
Ah! Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Come on. Get to the truck. 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 Let's open up the base while I'm here. Let's go action relay. The doors. Doors can be channel 11. Set up actions. TB. Where is it? Collector building, hangar door. So if I now change this, I'm going to set this to 10, and instead of calling it send 10, I'm going to call it grinders. Because then it'll show up nice and neatly there. Then I'm going to set channel and send signal 11 and call it doors. And then I'm going to set channel and send signal connector. Connect. So there we go. Now we have nice, easy to read labels. I can open the doors, and then that connect one, that's going to send the signal I need to drop the connector down. Which I obviously need to set up first, because I need to actually have the truck in place to see where this needs to be. Now, to continue on the theme, let's use the truss pillar. Alright, let's get this truck all the way in to a point where I can actually close the doors. So I think the connector position is going to require this to have a hinge at the other end, because I feel like that might be too far forward. So I didn't really consider that when I was placing it. Yeah. The angle this is going to go to is probably going to be about there. We'll go with a 2x1 base like this, and I think I actually don't need any sort of hinge or fanciness here. We can just have a connector like that. And if I get the angles right, that should hook up without any problems. Oh, okay. Just barely gets connection. But if I go forward, try and line up closer to that left-hand side. Oh! Nope. Wait, hang on a sec. Wheels. Do we have the ability to do this now? Lock groups. So what I'm thinking is what I need is a way to make these wheels lower power when I've got no load. But I don't think that's going to be super simple. So we've got all these controls for braking, etc. We've got steering angles, we've got increased power, decreased power, which is unfortunately only a single toggle. I would prefer to have a set power and then a set power, because what I was going to do is have it set power increase to the maximum and then set power at low for when I'm unloaded, and could even have that on an event controller that's detected when that connector is connected or not. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to work, so I'd have to use a timer block to... Oh, actually the event controller might be able to do this. Let's see. I can't use an event controller for docking for this, because it'll turn them on. It'll turn the batteries on to recharge whenever I connect to one of the pods. I can at least do this. Connector, lock, unlock. Small connector. Select actions. Groups. When connected, we're going to increase power. When disconnected, we're going to decrease power. And I'll do this a few times. I don't know how many times I need to do this, but I can find out by doing this. Decrease power, increase power. So let's drop this down to, that's 4 times 5, 6, 7, 8. Is this drivable now? Yes, it is a bit more drivable now. It was undrivable with that much power behind the wheels. So what I'm going to do, on each hotbar, I'm going to do the power increase, decrease. So now, if I lock, we go to second hotbar, you can see it's at 100. If I unlock, go to my second hotbar, you can see it's at 59. So now as I lock and unlock, this is going to alter my wheel power, which means it's going to be much more drivable without me having to think about it, which is delightful. Excellent. Cool. So we've now got that set up. I now need to have another action relay set up for the hinge so that it can be controlled from this cockpit. So let's do that. And that'll be on channel 12. I am going to have an awful lot of action relays on my buildings for these sorts of remote control setups. Yeah, in theory, this should work now, so... Yay! It's a bit slow. Probably want that to be a little bit quicker. And our connector gets up and out of the way, comes down, and I can lock. I can have my batteries. Let's set my batteries quickly up into a group. So we can go lock, recharge, close the doors. Yay! All remote controls set up. Excellent. Excellent, 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 excellent. So we've got our new truck. We've got our new setup so that I can get all this running, and I've all got remote control for all of it. I can collect pods now. We've got steel plate going, and a lot of it has been produced already. I don't know that I need to add any extra functions to the drop pods. I was thinking about it, but as I thought a little bit further, having remote control for turning the connector on and off is actually probably not that great. The thing that I could add to it is trying to add some mag plates to the drop pod so that the drop pod can lock to the ground and not slide around. Which may well be a sensible thing to do. But to do that, I would probably have to go back up to the launch air base. And I'm going to see if I can avoid doing that for the moment and send down another pod. So I'm going to get myself in a nice pressurized, safe seat. Let's remote up. Now, do you have a camera? No. Remote? Drill remote control, sure. Wait, do I really not have a camera? I don't have a camera up there that's not on the Remora? What the heck am I doing? I gotta go back up there. No, I have to go back up there. I need a camera so I can see and make sure the pods are actually launching. I don't have a camera. I have to go up there, which means I can fix the drop pods so they've got a landing gear on them. And with a landing gear on them, I can also add an action relay so that I can unlock those remotely. Oh, I need another vent controller on this thing. There's a good idea that was suggested. Where can I put it? What this one's going to do is close the door anytime my cockpit gets occupied. So, vent, cockpit seat, enter, leave, select actions, groups, door, pufferfish doors, when occupied, closed. When unoccupied does not need to open, but when occupied, closed. So now, with that door open, if I hop in the seat, it automatically closes. Which means anytime I get in the seat, if I've forgotten to close the doors, it's not going to be a problem. Because they will just do that themselves. Nice. Alright, let's get ready to launch. We need to undock. Oh, hang on. Let's do something else that people were suggesting that I think is kind of tidy. So let's give it a go. We're going to need another event controller. So, pufferfish event controller thrusters. The event is grid speed changed, I think. So grid speed equal or greater than 98. Let's choose. So set actions. What we're going to do... Thrusters. We've got, where are our pufferfish thrusters? Pufferfish hydrogen thrusters. So, when it's exceeded 90, we can set override percentage. So we'll set override percentage when it's exceeded it to 0, confirm. And when it's beneath it, set override percentage to 100. Let's see if this works. When I gain altitude, I'm going to turn that event controller on, because I need to have that event controller not operating all the time. So when I turn it on, it should, as I reach 98 meters a second, toggle the thrusters on and off and keep me around that 98 meters per second. We'll see. We go, up we go, up we go. Let's go forward. Let's turn that timer block on. Let's turn the reverse thrusters off. Nope, wrong thrusters. Okay. It's at full thrust now. Let's see what happens now that I haven't messed up the controls. There we go. It's pulsing those thrusts. It's keeping me at around that 98 meters per second mark. I can possibly make it a bit more efficient. Put it up to 99. Why is it? Oh no, it's thrusting everything. Oh no, no, no. I've got the wrong group. I've got the wrong group. Ah. I'm burning so much unnecessary fuel right now. Yep, that should be good now. Just those ones turning on and off. It's much better. Okay, I made a bit of a meal of that, but the general concept works. You can see that I'm sitting really neatly at that speed, and I can probably adjust it back a little bit because I think it's actually pushing against the limit a lot. There we go, that's better. Yeah, tidy. 97.5 seems like a pretty decent spot where I'm not going to be pushing over the limit too often, because putting the thrusters at full thrust does mean that they operate for long enough that I was pushing up against that limit, I think, some other time. That's sitting pretty sweet. As long as you don't do what I did, so don't do what Donnie Don't does, and as long as you don't do what I did and have every thruster overriding, so you're pushing left, right, so you're trying to squeeze your vehicle in on itself, you'll probably find that this is fairly efficient. And I'm glad I didn't need to use a script anymore. I need to remember that some things that didn't work when these blocks were first released do work now. Now, alongside this, I need to have a groups, set this up to have set override percentage of 0. Because when I turn the event controller off, I need to also make sure that I don't happen to turn it off when the thrust override is at full. So I can see the thrust override now when I disable it. And I definitely am glad I have the control for turning off reverse thrusters, because I do need to do that anytime I'm operating this as well. So I'll just put all those in that bit of the hotbar. It means I don't actually need to use the second hotbar at all anymore. Now that I'm pretty much here, let's turn off the event controller. We'll coast when we get closer. I can turn my reverse thrusters on, land, and set this stuff up. So let's have a camera mounted here, so I can look at the welder array. We'll see if that's in a terrible spot once I bring the hinge back down. Then looking from the hinges perspective, looking from the launcher's perspective is probably another good option. So let's turn that around. Why are you jiggling so much? Something that can look back and watch it launch. We got so much jiggles. I think it could be because this thing's got so much torque. Yep. All right, and we'll reverse you. Now, because I've disabled that sensor, this isn't going to turn on, which is actually not bad. So all I need to make this work with the landing gear is an action relay. We can pop over here. And then we need a landing gear. Put a mag plate there. Put a mag plate there. Set to auto lock is correct. Now if I switch off... switch off this merge block. I can change that blueprint. I can upgrade this. Control, Shift, B. Hooray! Projector's in the right spot. Let's turn the merge block back on. And we're all good. Oh no! No! I'm an idiot. I still haven't set up the actual controls. Need to do that first. Auto lock on, off. And unlock. Auto lock on, off. And unlock. And that should be it. So auto lock should be on by default, and therefore that will unlock it. And should be fine as long as I send a single signal. But because it only unlocks, I can spam the signal until it does the behavior I want. And it should work. Pod is nice and full. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to try and get this onto target. I want it to hit the target properly and get it closer to the base. And I think I know which way I need to turn, in order to do that. I'm not 100% certain, but I think I know. The trouble I have is that I'm not 100% sure what my rotation is down at base compared to up here, but I think I'm aligned too far anti-clockwise. So I need to turn clockwise a few degrees to see if I can make this land on the right-hand side of my conveyor line rather than the left. From this perspective, I think. Or at least the side of the conveyor line that I usually drive on, if that makes it clearer. So that's what I want to do now. And I'm only going to launch one pod, I think. But what I should probably do before then, see if I can use these cameras and see where they are. Welder cam. Okay, yeah, welder cam's not too bad. That works. What about launcher cam? Oh yeah, that's not awful. Should try and put one on the control tower though. Can I put one inside the control tower? Probably not. Don't think there are any blocks around here that would allow me to attach a camera to them. Unless I put it on the ceiling. But, oh no, wait, glass doesn't give you an attachment point there. There's no attachment in the middle of a glass block. Okay, so I'm going to need to try and attach it underneath here so I'm looking out that way, because that is the best view. I did put the control tower in the right spot. So what I think I'll do is replace this block, which is going to vent the whole base, with one of these guys. Then I can stick a camera on the front. And we've got it airtight and a camera in the right spot with the right orientation. Now I could have stuck one underneath, but I think we'd all prefer if I made it so that the block that this is attached to, or the camera that we're looking through, is not upside down. And before my jetpack runs out, let's land and test this out. Camera. Yeah, this one. Launch tower cam. Oh yeah. There we go. That's the view. Man, I'm glad I made this control tower. Now, annoyingly, this doesn't have a control panel, so I probably should make a remote control for this base so that I have a control panel that I can access and, while in that view, still be able to trigger commands. Alright, let's test this out. Okay, remote. So launch air remote control, what I want it to have is the default camera to be tower cam. So as soon as I hit control on this, oops, if I'm broadcasting. So as soon as I hit control on it, I should have gone into the camera. Why didn't I go into camera? Weird. I thought, why is that not working? Odd. Oh well. Camera. Let's add them to the hotbar then. So tower cam will be the first one, welder cam the second, and launcher cam the third. And then we can have our hinge to reverse. Alright, we should be able to launch from our camera position now, but we need to rotate the horizontal, no base drill, no. Oh, which advanced rotor is this? That one. Catapult azimuth rotor. 320. If it's currently at 329, let's go to 332. A velocity of 1. So 3 degrees. Alright, so let's launch this down. 3, 2, 1, launch. So I'm confident on this. And I possibly shouldn't have been, because that's not working right. Let's bring that back. Let's turn that merge block back on. Get that to lock itself down again. Let's bring that back. I think I busted the event controller's toggling of that connector, so that's not good. So if we go to ODP connector, and we go toggle block off, and we go, nope. Go unlock, and toggle off. Now I should be able to launch. Okay, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. And off it goes. Goodbye, ODP2. We'll see you when we get down the bottom. Let's return the launcher back to position. Now, I reduced the torque on that hinge, so it'll be interesting to see if that's messed with the position that the drop pod's going to end up at. I'm confident enough in the drop pod that I'm just not going to watch it. I'm just going to wait till it's landed, because I'll try and send another one once I see where it's landed and adjust the position. Hopefully I can do that while I'm up here. and then we can collect a bunch when I get down there. What I'd like to do right now is make sure I've got enough hydrogen. I do. Make sure I've got enough oxygen, and I'm not confident I do. And I want to do a little bit of a fly around of this base to see where the gold is and how much there is, and where more iron is. Because I know there's more iron on this asteroid, but I think I mined out every little bit of it within this bit. For those of you wondering why there's gold here when there probably wasn't before, that's because the Daily Needs mod that I removed when I resumed the series. The Daily Needs mod had altered the asteroid makeup, and I think had replaced that gold with potassium or something in the asteroids. So I didn't have access to the gold that would have been here in vanilla, as it is now back. So we've got this iron down here, which isn't a massive deposit, but is still worth mining. And we've got this gold that's around here. I think what I'd like to do is try and collect the gold first, before we get back into mining more iron, so that I can get yield modules on the refinery and get more iron out of the iron that I mine. We've got another... Is that another... Saw another blip just come up. Is that a different iron deposit? Is there a third? Oh, no, that's the same one. So I'll have to rebuild this drill down here so that it can mine in the correct direction. And also connect it up to the conveyor line, because for some reason it's not. Now, I could use the shuttle to do this, but I figure this is more efficient on my hydrogen resources. So it looks like there's not a huge amount of iron left here. And just that one gold deposit, from what I can tell. Might have to do some inspections of the surface in daylight. Oh, there's some gold on the surface. I can grab that. Might even GPS where that is. Oh, back down to my last bottle again. Let's get back to the base. I've got gold marked over that way. Might be part of the same deposit, but I don't think it is. I think we've got 2 deposits. Yeah, we've definitely got 2. Nice. Let's grab a little bit by hand, because I'm not convinced that my large drill apparatus has the ability to get here. I'm interested to see if I can collect enough gold by hand to build those superconductor components to get my yield modules on my refineries. Maybe even just one. So I don't recall if I messed with the amount of gold you get from gold ore or not. So I know I've messed with that in other series that I've played. There are a lot of things to keep track of. Alright, let's put the gold in. We've got nearly 1,000 kilos. The refineries are going. How much do I need for 20 superconductor components? 0.67 times 20 is an amount. It's like 13.5. So from 1,000 I got a 5.5-ish? 5.6? Okay. Alright, I can totally do this by hand. Like, it's 2 to 3 trips, although it'll get more efficient when I'm not bringing stone back. It's 2 to 3 trips per upgrade module, per yield module. That's not bad at all. Now, I think my refineries have... Let's check. I think my refineries have speed. Oh no, they've got speed and power efficiency. Okay, that's good. I was a bit worried that I put all power efficiency modules onto these things, which would have meant that their refining power cost would go up as I add the yield modules. And it is going to go up a bit, but not terribly much. So that's fine. And we've got our... Yes! Got yield! So I can do 1 yield module. So to do all of it, I would need 2. 8 of them. I've got 2 refineries. It's going to be like 16 hand trips. But first, let's go and see if we can connect to... Is that the right one? Yep. Camera. Where are we? 760 meters from the base. Oh, I think it's just run out of power. Okay, so that's not where I wanted that to land. But I'm not exactly sure where that is. But it's disconnected now. What I might do... Let's send down a second one. Because we should be able to find them, I hope. Oh, wait, no. We've got to send down a second one and go down at the same time. Because it needs to drop right near that one. Because I may not find it. I don't know where that was. Okay, so I need to... Oh man, I need to add more batteries to the drop pods. They do not last long enough. That was nowhere near long enough for me to find it. And the sensor off. Wait, no. Turn the sensor on. Turn the welders off, turn the sensors off. Now I won't die. And the other thing I'm going to do that I am annoyed about with this is set up the control panel for the remote control. And now, instead of launching that one straight away, I'm actually going to... Oh no, let's launch that one. We can have a collection of them down there. Even if they're in a bit of an annoying spot, it's probably not bad to have these launching relatively regularly. Oh, and launch. Off it goes. And reset. I'm going to turn off the refinery that I'm not upgrading initially, just so I can get more gold from each bit. And of course I've done this in a weird way, because that's my style. Let's get rid of that. Let's make a yield module. Our first yield module ever in this save. It's quite literally taken that long to get one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mine as much gold as I can until my rads reach their limit, which isn't that much longer. And then I'll drop another pod, so there'll be 3 down there. And then I'm going to head back to the surface and figure out where I've dropped those pods. And then, because I can now remote up here and I've got the cameras, I can adjust the position while I'm on the surface, which is much, much better. And I can keep checking where each one lands until I get it where I want it. And also can adjust the torque on the hinge, that sort of thing. So one of the other things you might be thinking about now that I've got gold is, woohoo, now I can build a jump drive. No, I can't. I can't, because jump drives require other stuff I don't have access to in the bulk that you need, particularly cobalt. So that's going to be kind of one of the things I need to expand this base function to achieve. Is my hope is we can get further out there, find some other asteroids that have other materials that we might want, such as cobalt, more iron, silver. If I can go out there and find silver, that would be amazing. Because what I'm thinking I would like to do in the long term is have the launch air base remain as my main link back to the surface. So any other materials that I find out in space come back here first before getting flung down. So maybe, and I'm not certain about this, but maybe it'll be possible to use automated drones to transfer between other facilities in this one. Being 0.18G, I'm a little bit hesitant to do that, but it's an option that I'm considering. There we go, 2 yield modules. Now my yield has gone from whatever the default is, which is like 100 and something. Oh no, yield rate 100 to yield rate 141. Now, how many superconductors do I have remaining? 8. How much stuff do I have left in there? 700. I might have enough for a third. I'm going to go mine another bit now. While these yield modules are going to be pretty useful for the gold and for the iron, they don't have any impact at all on the stone. And that's because, in Survival Impossible, big refineries cannot refine stone. So I'm stuck with the basic refineries yield rate for that. Which is important to think about because obviously a lot of the iron that I'm probably going to be able to get with this drill apparatus here is going to be from stone. So the yield modules aren't going to have any, unfortunately, any positive gains there. But for the iron deposit that I've got, and this gold, the rest of this gold when I mine it properly, absolutely worth it. So I've got a little bit of time. Apparently I don't get damaged until my rads reach 100, so I should be okay for a little bit longer up here, even once it starts getting into the red zone. Where are we at? Let's check the control panel of this. Yield rate, 168%. Yes! So all the gold that I'm processing now is getting me even further.
Inventory
76. See if I can get the last 2 on here before I have to leave. So that'll leave me feeling confident to come up here and plan my next excavation as my next trip. So the drill upgrades will be my next trip up here. I'm going to go inside while waiting for those last superconductors to be made. So I can hold out my rads for just a little bit longer. I may well even have enough time up here to get, and I have mined enough gold already to get all of them done. Figures. I am 2 power superconductors short of the last upgrade module. Ah, well. And at 82 rads, I think I'm going to quickly build the one I've already placed and get out of here. There we go. So, one refinery covered. One to be covered next time I'm up here. Let's launch another pod and head down in the pufferfish. Now, yes, I'm being lazy by hopping in this seat to then go to the remote control rather than just going up to the top and actually controlling this thing properly and seeing it in first person, but it's kind of to make sure that this system is working properly, that I'm going to be reliant on when I'm accessing this remotely. Now, why has that not turned on? Oh, I know why. Safety sensor. That's why that hasn't welded up. Into there. And into there. And now it's ready to launch. Probably. 3, 2, 1, launch. And away it goes. All right. I can follow this one down. Oh, wait. No. Let's return that so I can print again. And be ready to launch whenever I want it. Because it'll actually fill up properly without me having to interface with it. Now I'm heading back to the surface. Let's grab some of the oxygen while I'm here. Back inside my little ship that I love. I love this pufferfish so much. Can I see another ODP on my thing? There should be... Yeah. Where am I? Oh, I think I'm pretty much where I was before. I don't think it's really moved very far at all. So I can see the crane up there. Yeah. Okay, I haven't... That position hasn't changed much from the previous launch, from the first launch. That's good to know. What's not ideal is that I cannot see the other pod from that pod. So I wonder how close it is. But I'll figure that out next time, because I'm really happy with where I've gotten to today. We've gotten full yield modules on one of the refinery, almost full on the other one. I've got iron coming down. We've gotten the U-Haul, or whatever you guys come up with as a name for it, vehicle built, so I'm ready to go for actually collecting these things quickly, grinding them down. And that means next week I can build some track. Even though I didn't get onto that this week, I'm very confident I'll be building some track next week, as well as probably looking at doing some exploration beyond the launch air base. So there's all that and plenty more to come. And I will see you then. Oh, and landing this thing. Landing this thing will come next week.